Welcome to the Coder Dojo. I've had a really nice holiday break. I hope you have had too, but I am back and I am ready to get back into this series. This week I'm going to show you how to make new types of battle dogs to face off against our battle cats. So you have a variety of enemies you can face. The one that I'm going to show you how to make is a space dog. And it's going to have the ability to levitate up and walk a bit higher so that it can actually sometimes go over the top of some of your battle cats. So in order to do this, we are going to go to the bottom right corner of our screen. If you've got your project open up, have a look for the dog sprite, select the dog sprite, then right click on it, and we're going to duplicate this. So you're probably not going to be able to see this on my screen, but you're going to have something that says dog 2. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go into the costumes in the top left corner, and then the bottom left corner we're going to click on choose a costume. Now if we type in space, we'll see that we have this space dog here, which is called Dot. And I'm just going to get Dot A, and then I'm going to click on choose a costume again. Let's look for Dot B. Let's choose a costume again, and Dot C. I'm going to delete dog 2A and dog 2B. So now we should just have just these 3 costumes. And the other thing that we need to do is we need to click on the flip horizontal button to make sure that they are facing in the correct direction. Okay, seems good. Now the space dog, let's name it. So let's select where it says dog 2 next to where it says sprite, where I'm wiggling my mouse here. Let's call it space dog. Perfect. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger because it's going to be stronger than the normal dog. I'm going to make it size 35. Make it just a little bit bigger than it is now, so that it looks a little bit more serious than the normal blue dog enemy we've been facing so far. Okay, so we need to change some things in our space dog code. First of all, look for when I start as clone, then underneath that you should have show and set HP to 10. Now we get to decide what is the HP of our space dog going to be. I'm going to say 50 for now. We can change that later. Now, because we've made this dog a little bit larger, I'm also going to make the dog appear a little bit higher on the screen. So look for when green flag clicked, go to X 180, Y minus 100. Let's change that to Y minus 95. We can probably change that later if we want to, but for now that's fine. So the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a new piece of code that's going to dictate when the space dog goes on its spacewalk, when it levitates up and floats above the battlefield. So we're going to go to My Blocks, that red category, on the left hand side. Click on My Blocks, click on Make a Block, and we're going to type in spacewalk. Okay, so now we've got our define spacewalk function is here. We're going to make the spacewalk function, the spacewalk my block, run in our when I start as clone code. I'm going to zoom in on this for you. So look for when I start as clone and look down until you see if state equals walk. Then drag out a little spacewalk block from the left hand side and put it right underneath if state equals walk. This function's going to run every time the space dog is walking. So it's not going to happen when they're fighting. Now let's have a look at define spacewalk. What we're going to do is we are going to go to control, and we are going to put in some code that checks to see if the space dog is on a certain Y coordinate. so that it will do different things depending on if it's walking along the floor or if it's levitating up in the air, so to speak. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a new variable. We're going to go to variables, the orange category on the left. In the top left corner, we're going to click on make a variable. We're going to call this variable space walk meter. Now we're going to do something a bit interesting, maybe a bit weird with this. We're going to basically make this spacewalk meter go up, and then when it reaches a certain number, the spacewalk will happen and the dog will move up on the screen and then kind of walk above the battlefield, sort of levitating in the air. And then that same number is going to tick all the way down and it's going to come back to the ground, so to speak. So to do that, we're going to go to control. We're going to look for an if then. We're going to put that underneath define spacewalk. Then we're going to go to operators, the green category, and we're going to get a equals operator. Looks like this here. Then we're going to go to motion, and we're going to look down until we have Y position, that little round Y position. It's at the very bottom of the motion category. Drag that into the first socket of our equals operator. So now we've got if Y position equals. Now, the Y position of this space dog is going to be set to -95, remember? So first of all, let's click on that 50 and type in -95. So if your starting Y position is different, then just change it to whatever the starting Y position. Remember, that's how high the space dog is on the screen, right? So what we're going to do is if they're on the ground, we're going to start adding to the spacewalk meter variable. So go to control, get out an if, then else. Put it inside our if then. Go to operators, get out a more than operator. The arrow is going to be pointing towards the 50 for it to be a more than operator. Then we're going to go to variables. We're going to drag out our little spacewalk meter rounded variable. Got it there. So if spacewalk meter is more than, at this point you can change the numbers up a little bit, but let's just say 20 for now. You can make this a larger number if you want it to walk for a longer period of time before it levitates up into the air. So now we need to make it levitate up into the air. So let's go to motion and let's get out a glide 1 seconds to X and Y and put that underneath the if. So if spacewalk meter is more than 20, glide, then click on this 1 and let's type in 0.4. I want the glide to happen nice and quick. You can change that number a little bit if you want. You can make it longer or you can make it shorter depending on how fast you want the space dog to go up into the air. Now the X coordinate is actually whatever X coordinate the space dog already has, because we don't want to move them left or right, we only want to move them up or down. So this is kind of interesting. If we look down on the motion codes, we'll find this X position. Put that into X position. So set the X position to the X position. That means it won't change, it'll stay the same. Perfect, that's exactly what we want. But we want it to move up. So let's move it up to, let's say, -35. That'll make it nice and high. And you can change that number later if you want. So that's if the spacewalk meter has gotten high enough, the spacewalk will start. But if it hasn't gotten high enough, then we need to slowly make it get bigger. So let's go to variables. Let's get out a change variable by and put it underneath the else. Now the variable that we want to change is our spacewalk meter. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but it's very important that when you made your spacewalk meter variable, that you select for this sprite only. I'm pretty sure we did that. We didn't. Well, let's fix that now, shall we? I'm actually going to have to get rid of this spacewalk meter variable. Let's make a new one. Spacewalk meter. And then tick for this sprite only. Very important. Alright, so remember we need our spacewalk meter to go into our if spacewalk meter more than 20, then, and we need to change our spacewalk meter. So underneath the else, we need to change spacewalk meter by. Now, this will tick it up every time as they're walking, as the space dog is walking. So I actually want it to be a little bit unpredictable when the spacewalk happens. So I'm actually going to go to operators. I'm going to get pick random 1 to 2. So we're going to change. So we're going to change spacewalk meter by pick random 1 to 2. It's going to slowly tick up that number on that variable. Once it gets more than 20, the spacewalk begins, and they glide up to that y minus 35 higher on the screen. Okay, that's all good. Now the brilliant thing is we're going to copy this. So go to the if, that's the if next to the y position equals minus 95. We're going to right click on that if. We're going to duplicate. Should look like this. And we're going to put this whole thing on the bottom. So we've already got all this code for what happens if the space dog has a y position, a y coordinate of minus 95, where it's basically on the ground. We also need to have some code for what happens when it's in the air. Remember what's the y and what's the y position that we're sending it to for it to being in the air, for it doing its spacewalk? We're setting it to minus 35. So in our second half, this whole bit that we copied, let's have a look and let's change the first bit if y position equals minus 35. Okay, so if our y position equals minus 35, then what we need to do now is we need to see if the spacewalk meter has gotten below a certain point. So take out this more than operator, get out a less than operator. The less than needs to be the arrow is pointing away from the 50. Drag your spacewalk meter variable into that first socket, and we're going to say less than 1. Why not? That seems reasonable. If spacewalk meter is less than 1, grab that more than, throw it away, we don't need it. So if spacewalk meter is less than 1, then we're going to glide back to the ground. So we've got glide 0.4 seconds to x equals x position and y equals minus 95. And then else, we're going to change the spacewalk meter by, let's throw out that pick random, let's just make it minus 2. We don't want them to spend too long in the air, otherwise they're going to be impossible for our battle cats to fight. So there we go, it's going to tick up. So all this code should now make it so that our space dogs will, as they are walking, have a number. Their local variable, spacewalk meter, is going to slowly increase. And then when it reaches a certain number, they're going to go up into the air, and then it's going to tick back down again, that number, and then they are going to lower back to the ground. And then the cycle continues. Let's see if this works. So if you go to your cat base sprite, you might still have when space key pressed create clone of cat. That's based on something that we did, I think, in session 1. Click on that. If you still have that, then click on that triangle next to where it says create clone of cat and change it to space dog. If not, quickly pull it out now. You pull out when space key pressed from events and create clone of from control. We want when space key pressed, create clone of space dog. I'm just going to get this variable, the spacewalk meter variable. I'm going to make that unticked so we can't see it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this nice and big. That all seems good. All right, let's hit start. And if I hit space, we're going to make a copy of our space dog. Our space dog, as you can see, pops up into the air after a certain period of time and then pops back down again. I'm pretty happy with the way the space dog looks. It's a little bit bigger than the blue dogs. You can change it to be a little bit bigger again. If you're not happy with where the space dog is on the screen, you can change some of those numbers. The one thing that we might need to change is how much damage the space dog deals to the cat base. It's the one thing that we need to change, I think, because everything else should work all fine. Just want to see if the yeah, there we go. You can see the space dog even gets recoiled after fighting. Speaking of which, that might be something that we also might want to change. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. So let's have a quick look. Yes, look at our define get thrown back. If thrown meter is more than 50, that is the decision of how much it takes the space dog to be thrown backwards, like our normal dog. And I think 50 is what the normal dog has. Yeah, so we can make our space dogs a bit harder to throw back because they're meant to be a bit stronger. So we can change that underneath where it says define get thrown back. If thrown meter is more than 100. Now they're twice as hard to throw back when fighting. All of this looks good. That is all what we want. The one thing that we might want to change is how much damage our space dogs deal to the cat base. So it's up to you. I'm going to change this to -3 for now, but you can change that if you want. But yeah, if touching cat base, then set state to fight. That's good. Change X by 3, good. And then change cat base HP by -3. That's what I'll stick to for now. If you want to make your game harder or easier, you can change that. Now, there is one thing that I nearly forgot. We need to add code to our cat, our big cat, and our biggest cat. All 3 of our battle cats need to have code that underneath define check for enemies, so that they properly fight with the space dog. So look for your cat sprite, look for define check for enemies. Just make some space in between our if touching dog and if touching dog base. Then right click on that if next to if touching dog, duplicate and put it in that gap, and then we're going to select the sprite and change it to space dog. And again, it's up to you how much HP you think a space dog should do. You could select -2 or you could select -3 if you wanted. Let's say -2 for now, but you can change that to adjust the difficulty. We need to do the same thing with the big cat. We need to make some space, duplicate if touching dog, change it to if touching space dog, change HP by -2, and then do the same thing with our biggest cat. If touching space dog, change HP by -2. Okay, that should be everything. If there's anything else I've forgotten, I will let you guys know. there is a bunch of cool school holiday events happening down at City of Swan Libraries right now. Check out the link in the description of this video to see all of the cool events that are happening. There is tech stuff and coding stuff and all sorts of cool stuff. I highly recommend it. And until I see you guys next week for our last session, where I will show you how to implement some code where we will be getting this space dogs to be spawned, because currently we can only create them by pressing the space bar, but next week we're going to make it so that the dog base creates them. And I'm also going to show you how to make the most formidable battle dog of all, the dragon puppy. That should be a lot of fun. And so until I see you guys next week, remember to stay awesome, be cool to each other, and take care of yourselves. See you next time, ninjas.